What happens when trying to get pregnant starts putting pressure on your relationship instead of bringing you closer? Today's guest is Dr. Trina Read, a Canadian sexologist and relationship expert who has spent more than 25 years helping women and couples navigate desire, connection, and intimacy in real life. In this episode, we're talking about how to stay emotionally connected during the stress of trying to conceive and why so many couples start to feel disconnected. If you're looking for what you can do now to protect your relationship before that gap gets even wider, you don't want to miss this one. Welcome to Faith Over Pharma, the podcast for women who want a different way to heal. I'm Susan Gladstein, holistic health practitioner and functional nutrition specialist, and here we explore faith-led, holistic approaches to hormones, energy, and symptoms that just keep getting brushed off. If that's you, you're in the right place. If you're constantly pouring into everyone else and running on empty, it gets really hard to hear what your body needs, what your heart needs, or even what God may be trying to show you. That is exactly why I created the Rooted Reset Retreat in Costa Rica. This isn't just a getaway. It's truly a space to step out of the noise, slow down, be deeply cared for, and reconnect with yourself in a way that's hard to do in everyday life. It's for the woman who is ready to come with an open heart, be poured into. I mean, who doesn't want somebody to cook them all of their meals? But this is really to honor the kind of space that allows real rest, clarity, and renewal to happen. So if you've been craving that and a reset that really goes deeper than just a few days away, I would be honored for you to join us. You can learn more at rootedresetretreat.com. I am so excited for today's conversation because I know that this is an area that touches so many couples, but not always in a way that people talk about openly. Joining me today is Dr. Trina Read, a Canadian sexologist, best-selling and award-winning author who spent the last 25 years helping women in long-term relationships thrive with more connection, desire, and confidence. And I am so thankful that you're here because I think this is such an important conversation, especially for couples that are navigating stress, fertility, and the shifts that kind of happen in marriage and family life. So, a lot of couples who already start trying to conceive, they start feeling really connected. And then over time, it can kind of start feeling clinical or even transactional. So, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you do and how you can help couples maintain their emotional connection while navigating the pressures of trying to conceive.
Yeah, that's a big topic, isn't it? So let's try and dissect it into like smaller pieces, but I'll give you a little bit about my background just so you can understand where I'm coming from. So in 2002, I married my husband. We married at 33 years old. So it was like get on the bandwagon, start having kids, like it's like TikTok, eggs are coming to, expiry. So we ended up having 12 miscarriages. And so in that whole time of, trying to conceive and having all these miscarriages, uh, we did everything wrong that you're not supposed to do when you're trying to stay connected as a couple. So at 39, I was lucky enough to have my first feasible pregnancy, and I got my son. And it was wonderful. I mean, like you just think about that, like like after all that heartache, then we get our child. But what I didn't realize is once he came, uh, like our relationship was just a mess. It was just a complete mess. And then as luck would have it, we got pregnant a year later with our second son. And by the time our second son came, like our relationship had just gone sideways. So uh, I decided to try and help my relationship and resurrect things. I would do a 6-month challenge. Now, this was back in 2008, 2009, when blogs were really big. So I did this 6 month this 6 month challenge where we tried something every week and then I would blog about it, and it was incredibly popular. And I thought that just doing that would help jumpstart things with my partner and with my husband. And what I didn't realize is there's so much underlying emotional disconnection that we didn't understand. We were like, and so it took years, like years, to figure that out, and we did, and we're in a much better place now. But let me tell you, there was 3 to 5 years where we were in the trenches with the little kids, completely disconnected from one another, really trying to understand why we were staying together, because we were staying together for the kids, which was so cliche. But there was no. And I just look back and I think, if we had done a few simple things that I teach, and I was teaching at the time, we wouldn't have had to go through all that messy stuff in our relationship. So that's what I was hoping that you and I could talk about today.
Oh my gosh, what a great sort of kickoff to understand more about you, because I think it is important, and certainly something that I'm very passionate about, and something I always tell my fertility clients that, like, they come to me and just even the act of trying to get pregnant is kind of an ordeal, and they're at odds with one another, and it's kind of a tricky thing. But I really like to point out the fact that I'm hoping that they plan on being with this person well after the pregnancy happens. And so there's a lot of work that needs to go into that. And when you're pouring into everybody else, your kids or whatever, it can be really hard to have the energy, or even prioritize that. So I would love to kind of hear about some of the stuff that you teach, or even things that you had done maybe wrong that you wish you would have done, that you tell other couples, hey, you need to do this.
Yeah, well, there's a famous among sex therapists quote that goes something like, when your relationship is going well, it adds about 15 to 20% to the couple's vitality. But when things are not going well, when intimacy is not going well, it's non-existent, or like it's weird between the two of you, it takes away 50 to 75% of your relationship vitality. Like, it's significant. So I think where every single couple makes a mistake is that when things are going well in your relationship, we completely take it for granted. Like, it's just like, like we're swimming, we're along, we're great, like we're in a good spot, and we don't really think about it. It's not until our relationship starts going sideways that we're like, oh, we've got to put some energy and time into this. And I think a lot of couples get caught into, that particular rut. So, it's really, if you know that you are in a situation where you're maybe struggling with fertility, and you're trying to, like, your focus is on getting pregnant and staying pregnant. Like, that's your focus. But and I get it, but in order for this to work, and part of bringing the stress, so that whole situation is so stressful. And as you may know, it's much more difficult to become pregnant when you have all that stress going on. So it's really about taking a step back and reprioritizing your partner, because ultimately it's the two of you as a team working together. Like, you're going to be, not, you're working together as parents, you're working together, like you're going to be working together on all these different levels, and it starts right now. And so it doesn't have to be complicated. Staying connected, when I first started doing this 25 years ago, uh, I would say to couples, every week, take some time, sit down with each other for an hour, maybe if you drink wine, have a glass of wine, just reconnect with each other. And I had so much pushback. So like, people are like, that that doesn't work in my real life situation. And so over 25 years, I've evolved this to, you know what, every single day, intentionally look for something kind to do to your partner. Look for something intentionally to prevent, to start what just Dr. Justin Lemire calls create erotic threads. So erotic threads outside the bedroom are just things where we show our partner that they are desirable to us. So, like sending a flirty text or, kissing them. It, the options are endless, right? But it's really just mindfully saying, what have I done today to help connect me to my partner, help them feel desirable? And, it honestly, these things take less than a minute. Uh, and if you aren't sure, if you're not, I'm not a creative person. Like people send these really wonderful flirty texts to their spouse, and I'm like, that's amazing. And I would have no idea how to do that myself. Like, I don't know. I have never sent a flirty text to my husband. And I'm sure if I did, he would fall down and just like, what, like, I would have no idea what he'd be like. Are you okay? Is everything fine? What's going on? So if you're not a creative person, there are hundreds of um, articles. There's millions of articles on Google. You can just Google it, or you can go onto my YouTube, or you can go onto my Substack, and there's thousands of me, right? So there's thousands of YouTube channels that will give you ideas. And if that doesn't work for you, you can just, honest to goodness, just type it into your chat GPT. What are some fun, flirty things that I can do for my partner? And I'm sure, chat GPT would be much more creative than I could ever be. But so I'm just saying it's it's not what you do, it's the intention of what you're doing. And here's a guarantee that I can promise you. So I promise you that if you start tracking, like, you start May the 1st to do something every single day, by May the 30th, you're going to see a change, a shift in your relationship dynamic. Like, because you just are pouring something positive, something positive into your relationship. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to lower your stress level. That's going to lower your cortisol level, which is going to ultimately help your fertility. So like, this is all interacting. So the thing is, if, it does take some thought. Like, you can't, like, it is, there is some like pre-thought to doing this. But as we already alluded to, if you don't decide to invest just a little bit into your relationship, I think you and I both can speak to when the kids come, you're just you as a couple, you are in the trenches for at least 2 years. And after you're out of the trenches with the baby, your intimacy is forever evolving. So like, the kids are napping now, they're not napping. And then, the teenagers can hear you. Like, I remember the first time my 15-year-old, he said to me, so how was it? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we were just busted, right? It was like, oh, you heard? Ah, and I'm sure that's every parent's worst nightmare, right? But it's just like, the goalposts are constantly moving. And if you don't have your good couple juju in line now, like, I know that, 15 years from now seems like a really long time, but honestly, it goes by just in an instant. And if you don't have this connectedness together now, 15 years from now, it's like, it's just, you're going to be in a place where I have so many couples where they love each other and they want to be connected, and they want to have they're in a place now where they have some time and energy and they want that connection. But reconnecting is so much effort, so much effort. And, that all can be taken away just by doing something small every single day.
I love that. That's such good advice. My husband and I have always, between our military careers and he is a first responder, we spend a lot of time apart. And so we've always had to be very intentional. And one thing that I think is really important, especially for us when we don't have a lot of time, in togetherness. So our time is very limited. And then my 5 year old, of course, if she doesn't see him for several days, she wants to monopolize all of the time. And so it's really benefited us to, yes, send flirty texts, but also for me, when I need something, I have to know that about myself and ask because he's not a mind reader. He's not here day in and day out usually. And so really understanding what it is. So our love language, if you will, is words of affirmation. So we're very good about writing each other notes, when we haven't had a lot of time to connect and all of that. But I always think through like the ridiculous things that I used to do when we were dating that now is just like, oh, I don't have time to think about that, like but really be, trying to be more intentional and prioritize that. Like, my baby just turned 1, so we've been, in this different season now. There's 2 at home, and then we have adult children and all of the things. And so it can be as simple as a text or whatever it is that you I think it's important to know that about yourself. Like, how do you feel most loved, or most desirable, and be able to communicate that with your partner because it may be completely different than what they expected, right?
Well, I find, generally women are the caretakers, and, there's there's such a big overwhelm. Like they're just learning a new job. Like it's on the job training, and like we're just flailing, trying to figure it out. And, you know, my whole shtick, like this is all that I talk about in my job, is having women ask for what she wants. And so the majority of women uh, are are not satisfied because she doesn't feel able to tell her partner what she wants. And so what you're saying, like it's so advanced and so mature that you're like, you know what, this I have a 1-year old and I need my partner to step up and do things in order for me to feel safe and nurtured and all these things, right? And so we all need to take a page from your book and like say, you know what, I feel like, if you're still trying, like if you're in the trying, if things are starting to feel mechanical, or uh, you need to say, hey, we need to shift this so that I feel more nurtured in this situation. Maybe that looks like I don't know, a massage, whatever suits you. But if you're not feeling that connection now, trust me, it's gonna just get worse, like way worse when the baby comes. So starting to ask for your needs to be met now. And so here's the thing that I always, like I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been talking about this for 25 years, and I'm still astonished by it. So women generally are unable to say what she needs, and her partner wants to know. So here's your partner saying, "Hey, tell me, I want to know. Hey," and then women are like, "Oh, I can't tell my partner." So there's that dynamic. I'm just saying to every lady listening, your partner wants to know. So if you need a back rub because you're tired or whatever, or you need your feet rubbed or whatever, in order to facilitate getting in the mood, and because you've been at this fertility thing forever, and like you're starting to feel like you're falling into a rut, which you probably are. It's time to start asking for your needs to be met, and it starts now. And I promise you, if you start now, once baby comes, it's going to be a lot easier for you to, because you're really going to need your partner to support you. during that time. And so if you start practicing now, it's going to be so much easier once baby comes.
For sure. And I think most men would say, "What? I can rub your feet and, have this next step happen, naturally." Yeah, count me in for that. If you
Yeah.
were just to say what you needed instead of it being like a long, drawn out miscommunication. But even, I think leaning into each other during stress is really important to help couples reconnect and support each other. How do you see that, leaning into each other when it is stressful? Because we mentioned stress is not going to help anybody's fertility.
Yeah. So when we're stressed, most people tend to isolate. And we also tend to take our frustrations out on our stress and frustrations out on our partner. And I think you know, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think it's just an awareness of that you're isolating and that you're taking your frustrations and out on your partner. And maybe you have an agreement, you're saying in your partnership, hey, when we're being pissy with each other, we call each other out on it because sometimes, like I know I've had days where I thought I was fine, but everybody around me is like, no, you're not fine. You're being not fine. And so, and it was like, oh, I didn't know. I had no idea. And I know, so I feel like, it's about having that conversation where, why are you taking this out on me? Like, why is this happening? Like, I did nothing to have this anger directed at me. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like when we're stressed out, it's really again intentional to say I need to we need to lean into each other right now. Like we need to have that moment where we're just holding hands or or something. There's been so many studies to show that when you touch somebody, when you touch your partner, it just takes your stress level from here down to here. So sometimes when you're super stressed out, you don't have to do anything fancy. It can just be something as simple as, grabbing your partner's hand or giving them a hug. It's about redirecting that stress and saying to your partner, I really love you, and you know, and also something that works for me, but it's not going to work for a lot of people, but something that works for me is when, I'm in that really stressed, frustrated, angry headspace and I'm angry with my husband. I, list the top 5 reasons why I chose him. And, usually, not always, but usually when I get to number 5, I'm like, okay, I'm still mad, but my perspective has changed. And so, you know, you have to like figure out how to start shifting your mindset because it doesn't do your partnership any good to stay in this stress loop when you're both trying to get pregnant, right? Like I have always said I can tell what's going on inside the bedroom by what's going on outside the bedroom. It's a pretty good indicator, right? When you've seen couples who are not on the same page and you can bet that that's the exact same thing that's happening in their bedroom, right? But when you've seen couples who are connected and the Gottmans, they talk about uh having small repairs. So when you're in this place of stress and anger, it's not about trying to fix the anger, but it is about making small repairs with your partner. So whatever, you can, and I do this and it works, but in the moment I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I really don't want to do this, but like, I will do something nice, like say to my husband, like can I can I get you a coffee or can I do something nice for you? And you know, um it, it always shifts the dynamic. And the faster that I do a repair when there's that couple stress the faster that couple stress goes away, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of times something I had to learn having, some childhood trauma that I was holding on to with abandonment and whatnot. But I think it's really important to expect the best from your partner, especially in stressful times, but in general speaking, because there's many times where I've had misunderstandings with my husband. And, you can go, especially if you've got trauma and things that you're dealing with, or stress or anger, because it's hard sometimes to even think clearly, but you can automatically assume what their intention was in the negative. And then once you start seeing one negative thing, it just kind of builds and compounds on one another. And so then all you see is sort of the bad, if you will. And that's when I think people start doubting their relationships and grow further apart. But if you come from it from the perspective of you expect the best, like, I know he doesn't want to be working all the time. He wants to be home with me or whatever and spend time with me, but he feels he's got to take care of us by working all the time. That's a completely different thing than you're never home to help or whatever. Like, I could go down some serious negative rabbit holes. And then again, when you see the negative and you just keep repeating it, it builds more tension. And so that's a rule of thumb that I've kind of learned more in my older years, as
Yeah,
just
so it's
being
yes, it's I think it's just I think what you and I are both saying is we're shifting our perspective.
exactly.
So, like, I'm going through the list of 5 things, reasons why I married him, and and why I stay with him, and you're like you're shifting your perspective, but it's like it's intentionally saying, "Oh, I'm stressed out and I'm frustrated and I'm angry, but I'm going to shift out of that, and I know how to do that. So this is how I do that."
I love that. Well, how can couples really sort of intentionally build that support system that allows them to do that? I know that you have some ways that you can help them, and I would love for you to share that as well.
So I just think it's sitting down over a glass of wine for an hour. I'm just joking. Well, you can do that, but it starts with a conversation, and I understand that having conversations about intimacy is really tricky and difficult, and it's astonishing that people can spend 30 plus years together and never once discuss their intimacy, right? But this is a really important conversation to have. So and as my colleague, Dr. Jessica O'Reilly says, you when you're going into these conversations, lean into the awkwardness. It's going to be awkward. It's like there's no getting over it. So just, you know, lean into it. And the thing is, when you do it, you'll think, oh, this wasn't so bad. Like, it was awkward and it was cringy, but we did it and it wasn't so bad. And now things are better between us. And then the second time, hopefully, that you do this, it will be less awkward and cringy, right? Because as we alluded to, uh, the, once baby comes, your whole intimacy is going to be turned upside down. And it's going to be forever evolving. So the goalposts are always going to be changing. So it's really starting to have conversations about, what do we need to do as a couple? How can we get there? How do we say to each other when you feel lonely or you feel disconnected? Like, these are really, really tricky things to admit to your partner. And if you don't know how, and FYI, the majority of people don't. They just don't know how to bring these conversations up. You can go to my YouTube channel or somebody else's YouTube channel, and I've got videos up that start this conversation for you. So you can watch this conversation. You can watch me and talking about this, and then you can have a conversation together, or so this is, or like I've already said, there's like millions of articles on Google that you can just send an article to your partner and let them, like, there's there's people who want to think about it. I'm a person who likes to think about things. So, like, send something to your partner, let them think about it, and then sit down and have this conversation. But it's really about saying to each other, you know what, we're going into the trenches for the next couple years. What can we do to stay connected? And like, what are some signs that you feel touched out, or like all these things that like, what can we do? And if you troubleshoot this ahead of time, that 2 years is still gonna you're still gonna be in the trenches. It's still gonna be tough, but I promise you, when that 2 years is done, you are going to be in an infinitely better shape as a couple than if you didn't go through this process.
Man, that's so good. And I know somebody that's listening here is like, yes, I need your YouTube. I need all the things. So tell us how somebody can find you. And I'll make sure it's in the show notes, but for those who are driving right now.
Yeah, so I've got on my website, it's trinaread.com. I have a lot of freebies, but the one freebie that would be great for this particular podcast is the 5 pleasure secrets of satisfied couples. And it gives 28 ideas on how to connect as a couple. So, chances are you're only going to pick one or two, but you know what? That's two more than you had before. So, all my socials, YouTube, Substack, Instagram, everything, it's under at Dr. Trina Read. It's easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. And is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't cover before we jump off?
I just want to reiterate how essential it is for women to start understanding that her needs really do matter, because there's a lot of things going on in her body with the fertility, and then once baby comes, like there's just so much going on. And if you can just communicate this to your partner, uh, it's going to make them understand a lot better. It's going to make your couple dynamic a lot better. And it really just is you saying, hey, you know what? I'm worth it. I am worth talking about my needs being met. So that's my wish.
I love it. And that's such an important message to just get out there from one woman to another. You matter and you should speak up and not feel bad for that. So thank you so, so much for taking the time to share all of this wisdom. And hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Faith Over Pharma. If this helped cut through the noise, share it with a friend who always asks, do you think this actually works? And if you're ready to go deeper through immersive retreats, phototherapy, or the Rooted Reset, you'll find your next steps at susangladstein.com.
Thanks for listening.